Hey, this is Indiana here with Emptoraudio, where we review audio gear, whether it's cheap or expensive. Well, today I've got the Fosi Audio. Now, this is a interesting model number on this one. This is going to be the DA-2120C, and they're calling this a compact stereo integrated receiver. Now that's quite a mouthful there, but basically it's going to have a DAC built in. It's a 2.1 channel amp, or I should say 2 channel amp. It does actually have a sub out. Now it of course has a DAC and an amp. That makes it a integrated amplifier, which is pretty cool for how small this thing is. It's actually quite impressive. Now I will say, I listened to the DAC in it, I listened to the amplifier in it, not separately of course, all together, and quite surprisingly it sounds better than a lot of smaller amplifiers that I've heard before. Now I will say it does have two weaknesses, and the first one in my opinion is that the DAC is so-so. It's not the best DAC I've heard, it's not the worst DAC I heard, but I feel like the amplifier is pretty underrated in this unit, where the DAC is not really doing it its full justice. Now hooking up something like maybe a SMSL DO-300 DAC, of course much more expensive than this unit itself, a little bit, maybe out of the ballpark, it's overall a fantastic unit when you pair it with something like a much higher end DAC. So the DAC is okay, that's not too big of a deal, but this thing does only retail for about $180. It's currently even on sale right now for like 15 bucks off, making it about $165, which is pretty cool. So I did do a written review that'll be on Home Theater Hi-Fi here in just a little bit, and unfortunately we can't take this thing apart, just like the previous unit I reviewed. It's got so much stuff going on in the front and the back. When I took the screws out, there's so many little connections and ribbon cables and soldered on parts. I just don't want to break anything taking it apart. So we're going to do a close-up of this and I'll be able to show you guys all the back panel, the front panel, and there's one more thing that I don't really like in this unit, so let's check it out more close-up. Alright, so here's a close-up of the Fosi Audio DA-2120C. Now, honestly, the second thing that I didn't like about this unit so much is, honestly, it's not a very pretty unit. A lot of other smaller 2-channel units that I've reviewed, they're going for this, very sleek, very cool-looking front. This doesn't really go together in my opinion. Now, they do claim that it's got a OLED screen on this. It looks like a GM dashboard, if you know that, that green, kind of minty green lettering to it. It's not like it's bad, but it's just not my thing when it comes to audio gear. These two buttons over here, I mean, that one's loose, this one's not really that loose, but this one's definitely a little loose. And the volume knob, it could be a better designed unit when it comes to just the aesthetics of it. It's not terrible, it's not great, it's just really not my cup of tea, guys. That's really my opinion on it. But overall, the front, it gets the job done. You've got a nice volume knob here. I like the tactile feedback on the knob. There's a few of these, little stops in it, which is always nice to have. Of course, you've got on, off, select, if you want to make some selections. But here's the remote for it. Very basic remote, nothing too special here. Now, there's a couple other, hidden modes on here where if you read some of the troubleshooting, some of the Q&A questions, like if you hold down display, called a long press, it activates the +6 gain mode. So I did notice this thing was a little quiet in testing for being a 50-watt Class D amplifier. And what I ended up doing was putting the +6 gain on, and then it kind of sounded normal, like a normal 50-watt amplifier, which is a little weird. Of course, some people might not want to do that because you're going to sacrifice, of course, a little bit of audio quality doing that. So it's not optimal, but it's something there. All right, moving towards the back side, they give you a just massive RF antenna on the back. Of course, I have it off for the review, but it is ginormous. It, of course, goes the whole length if you have it folded down. You've got your USB input here. You've got optical, you've got coax, and then, of course, you've got a regular left and right RCA there. Of course, you have a sub out, which, of course, is very popular to have. This thing puts out a good amount of power, honestly, and you can run, loudspeakers without using the sub out. You could, of course, run, I would say you could run most tower speakers. They're not going to require too much power to a decent level of volume with this amplifier. Being Class D 50 watts, that's pretty solid for what it is. However, having a sub out is, of course, always nice to have. And we do have 5-way binding posts. They're kind of on the smaller side. They're not, huge by any means, but at least they're not, cheap binding posts at all. They're actually a decent quality here, and they'll definitely get the job done. Now we do have the DC input. On the right side here, it's going to have an external power supply, which, depending on how you look at it, I kind of like that. It does save space a little bit. Now, if you compare the size to my screwdriver here, I do like, I definitely got to say, I definitely appreciate these units that, they have a lot of inputs on the back of this, but they're not cramped together. They, of course, have some space to it. You got some space to work here. Some of the units that I've tested, they're super tight back here. It's hard to get the speakers connected, hard to get some of these inputs connected because everything's just so tight. This unit is still compact while yet being able to work behind here relatively easily. All right, so how does this unit sound? Well, I think it sounds really, really good when you take the built-in DAC out of the equation. The DAC is, like I said before, it's just so-so. It's not, awesome. It's not bad. It just kind of is not really doing the amplifier really any justice. Now, I will say, I compared this to my Arylic B50 that I got in recently, and this thing definitely sounds better. Now, the Arylic doesn't sound bad. It's just that when I'm listening to this thing on near-field monitors, it definitely has more openness, more airiness. It doesn't feel, I guess, what's the right word for it? Maybe a bit harsh at times, where this thing is just very crisp, very smooth. I'd say it's one of the best amps that I've heard for under $200, which is actually quite impressive. I think this thing is, pushing against other amps that are in the $300, $400, $500 range for just what it sounds like. Now, of course, it's not pushing out a ton of power. It's only 50 watts at Class D, so it's nothing too crazy there. But I think the amp in here sounds just incredible for what it is. So if you want to just maybe avoid using the DAC, or if the DAC is kind of what you're looking for sound-wise, I guess it's a win-win there. But at the price point of this thing, being right around $180, being under $200 for what this thing really can do, when it's got Bluetooth, it's got so many different types of inputs, a DAC built in, there's a lot of uses for this little amplifier. I'm just mostly using it for review on my desktop setup with near-field monitors. So it's a pretty sweet little amplifier for that alone. This thing has got a lot of functionality to it, and I'm really loving this kind of, a lot of these brands on Amazon, on Alibaba are doing a lot of this really cool stuff for really affordable pricing. And, love them or hate them, I think Fosi Audio is doing an amazing job at this. I wasn't really sure what to expect with this amplifier when I got it in. I'm not sure if it's going to sound great, or okay. But this thing kind of blew me away by how good it sounds. Now, when you got other stuff built into these little units, like if you had like maybe a headphone amplifier out front, a DAC into it, that's not going to be the, forefront of what's going to be quality-wise in these units. It's going to be more of an afterthought. So things like, a built-in DAC, an extra headphone amp, they're definitely not going to be the best. They're going to be, of course, much cheaper than what the unit is actually designed to do. And this unit is definitely designed to have a great amp in it. So the DAC lacking is a little bit expected there, but it's not terrible. It's, it's definitely passable. It's still good. But if you put it with a much better amp, I'm running mine with my SMSL DO-300, this thing really shines. So I can say I definitely can recommend this using the built-in amp, but the DAC is all right. So guys, that's kind of my take on it. I'd have to say it's definitely recommended. I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10. But you can pick this thing up even on sale for cheaper. Wow, that's actually incredible for what it's worth then. So guys, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great day.